Again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. There's a high fire danger warning out, otherwise known as a red flag warning, here for the eastern Alaska range, central and eastern Alaska range until 6 p.m. this evening, which time winds will drop off enough that we won't see extreme fire danger there. It'll go into more of a high category. And also some showers up in that area too are helping things out, actually getting some showers, developing scattered showers in areas mainly over the mountainous terrain of the eastern interior there, the upper Tanana Valley, locally into the 40-mile country. So moving on to the river breakup map here, see the stretch of the Yukon here, especially in the lower Yukon River Valley and the delta there, showing mostly open now in that area, and still mostly ice here back to the northeast up the Porcupine River. Of course, the Koyukuk, Kobuk, and Colville rivers, all of those rivers up there still iced over and open down here to the south. And next, fire danger. High, a little less up here, had some light showers conditions, generally less than 1/10 of an inch, but humidities went up and it was a little bit of moisture, so that knocked the high fire danger back. Grass, this is for grass, and of course a little bit of moisture will make a big difference when it comes to grasses. Anyway, still some areas of high fire danger there along the Yukon and to the north and east of the Yukon there. Much more widespread area here over the eastern Tanana Valley into the 40-mile country, Northway and Tok, Delta Junction, and across the Alaska Range down in the central Copper River Basin. Gulkana still had gusts 40 miles an hour this afternoon out of the south there, so that's keeping it up in that area. And then a couple of spots here, kind of a zone on the lee side of the Alaska Range, the east side of the Alaska Range, but a lot less than what we saw yesterday. Some pretty good rainfall amounts, or at least wetting rains, out over the Yukon Delta and up along the Yukon. Flat had about 1/3 of an inch today, as well as St. Mary's, for example. Other locations had a lot less. And satellite imagery, got a low tracking up the one that came in yesterday, really weakening here, but a lot of cloudiness and some shower conditions, kind of unsettled here over much of the southern and western interior of the state today. And then a weak disturbance tracking eastward there across the northern panhandle with some showers today, but only 2/100 of an inch fell at Juneau. A little bit better rainfall amounts. Cordova had about 4/10 of an inch, really not all that heavy. And Seward picked up 1/4 of an inch today, and less than that at Valdez, and there was generally 1 to 2/10 of an inch across southern Kenai Peninsula and across southern Cook Inlet there, so kind of a wet day. Lighter amounts up to the north to nothing in the Susitna Valley, or the Matanuska Valley. Palmer seeing winds early this morning had gusts about 45 miles an hour, and currently today, the afternoon, had gusts 40 miles an hour at Bethel, 45 miles an hour at Cape Newenham. A little breezy in areas out here with some clouds dropping down and some moisture into the Pribilof Islands on down to the eastern Aleutians. And then just generally cloudy skies out over the Aleutians here with light winds and just about no precipitation, at least at the few reporting stations I looked at didn't report any. And then kind of cloudy up here through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island area. A lot of, in fact, very little clearing going on currently anywhere, but that should change in some areas here over the next couple of days. On the chart today, that low's tracked all the way up here in toward, let's see, that's up in toward the Kobuk Valley there. Up toward the Selawik Valley. I guess it's closer than the Kobuk Valley. Anyway, up to 998 millibars now. A narrow band of light rain with that down along the trough axis here, and a couple of weak troughs keeping it showery, cloudy, with some little bit of light rain into the eastern Aleutians, possibly back up toward the Pribilofs. Wind's not really much of a problem there, kind of northwest, 15 to 25. And then just maybe some fog and drizzle, and that's about it out over the Aleutians. Higher pressure farther out toward Chimia, keeping the winds light in that area, and mostly dry. Weak trough here along the North Gulf Coast, again brought the rainfall in that area. And that's swinging into the northern panhandle for some showers. And down to the south, trying to clear out a little bit there. And a lot of mostly cloudy skies here now over the eastern interior today with some, again, scattered showers developing, moving into the area. For tonight, those showers will taper off over the southeast coast. In fact, toward morning or shortly after midnight, at least by 3 a.m., they'll probably be completely done. And you'll start seeing the clouds trying to clear out, high pressure off the coast. Periods of light rain or showers will continue for the North Gulf Coast, looking at Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula. Southeast flow here will definitely keep it on the damp side for Kodiak Island, but rainfall amounts won't be all that much. Same thing for the Alaska Peninsula. Low hanging here southwest of Cape Newenham, weakening, but it's going to keep it pretty damp with light winds. Probably some VFR flying conditions here over the southeast Bering Sea and toward Bristol Bay. And that band of showers or areas of light rain continues, kind of shifts around a little bit here from about Nunivak Island up across eastern Norton Sound, linking up to that 1,006 millibar low now, continuing to weaken as it shifts up across the western Brooks Range area. You can see out here to the west, really nothing going on, just high pressure over the Aleutians and much of the Bering Sea, but you can catch a warm front here coming across the Russian Far East, and that thing will track tomorrow, come a little bit farther southeastward, really not jumping into the Bering Sea yet, but that's about the only thing out there you can see other than the high pressure over the western Aleutians. And that's going to make for a lot of low clouds, maybe some fog, areas of drizzle out there, and that's about it. Light winds, really light winds actually. And that'll extend up with a ridge axis to the Bering Strait. There's that low continuing to weaken. In fact, it's so weak I forgot to put a pressure on it. But it could be some few flurries maybe, or mixed rain or snow, a little bit of moisture, but nothing significant there for the western Arctic coast. Definitely winds not a problem at all. Winds really dropping off, continuing to drop off from what you saw even today here over the eastern interior, right on down to the Gulf of Alaska, 1,022 millibar high developing. Skies clearing out, sunshine increasing tomorrow for the eastern interior, and definitely down across the southeast coastal areas. We've got this system here, looks like it's going to cut off mostly to the east there, and then this one keeping it periods of rain in across Kodiak Island. Maybe southern Kenai Peninsula, very light rainfall amounts, but definitely cloudy skies with a risk of a shower anyway, with showers back across the Alaska Peninsula. And then for Monday, that low just shifts up to the northwest a little bit there, so it's really nothing kicking it out. Not even this dropping into the Bering Sea initially, but that probably will affect it eventually. That'll bring a chance of rain in toward the Pribilof Islands in the afternoon on Monday. Chance of rain or showers here across the southwest interior, across southern Cook Inlet, Homer, Seldovia to Fognak Island. Mostly sunny and milder here over the interior, and that'll extend right on down across the Panhandle. So a couple of nice days coming up there, and better, as I mentioned, over the eastern interior. And for lows tonight, 35 to 40, and then 30s here over southern Alaska, coolest in the Copper River Basin, higher elevations, and upper 30s, lower 40s for the southeast coast. Highs tomorrow, 55 to maybe 63 in the Tanana Valley, 50s, lower 60s for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning, 20s there on the north slope in the Arctic coast. Otherwise, 30s to 40s here over the remainder of the state. And the highs, 65 to maybe 71 over the eastern interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic for Sunday morning. Got marginal VFR here from St. Matthew Island all the way down in toward False Pass and just catching on Alaska. And some IFR here just very close to the Pribilofs or just to the east there. Pretty good VFR on out to the west. Just some patchy marginal VFR and some marginal VFR southern Kodiak Island over toward Chignik. And a little bit here over western Cook Inlet up to the Alaska Range and in the Gulf of Alaska, but a lot of VFR to start the day tomorrow. And then that changes quite rapidly, really goes downhill. Some IFR approaching the southwest coast, but we'll reach western Nunivak Island, and then from the Bering Strait up and around just off the Arctic coast, some more IFR. Holding VFR here, central interior, Copper River Basin, right on down the southeast coast, and marginal VFR, good southerly flow here, keeping the conditions lower or actually pulling some moisture up, evidently from or from the Pacific here into the Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet. And then for Monday morning, still have IFR here, eastern bearing into the Alaska Peninsula, kind of just along the Yukon Delta coast and a little off the southwest coast here, coming back up across southern Kodiak Island, probably to the state airport there. Marginal VFR continues across Kamishak Bay, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, and the western Susitna Valley. VFR panhandle into the interior. And for Monday afternoon, risk of a thunderstorm developing here on the edge of that moisture field. Well, actually over the southwest mountains, there's a slight chance. Pretty good VFR though in the afternoon through much of the interior. Still holding on to this marginal VFR condition. Cook Inlet, western Susitna Valley, up to the Alaska Kodiak. VFR, southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, and much of the interior with marginal along the Arctic coast. And for Anaktuvik, past tomorrow, marginal VFR to start, and then becoming VFR probably by afternoon. Same forecast for Adigan. And Lake Clark and Merrill, look for marginal VFR most of the time tomorrow. And rainy, same forecast, occasional marginal VFR. And windy, VFR, now possible marginal VFR in the southern entrance, especially earlier in the day. And that may go away later in the afternoon or by afternoon. And Isabel, marginal VFR with VFR conditions out the north entrance into the valley. Mintasta, VFR, chance of marginal conditions on the south side. And Tanita, marginal VFR, possible eastern entrance, otherwise VFR. And for Portage, starting out IFR, turning toward marginal VFR, so it should be a little better in the afternoon Sunday. Chilkoot and White, VFR for the next couple of days. And the freezing levels here, not as high as they were, about 2,000 to 4,000 feet there across the southeast coast, 6,000 down over the Queen Charlottes, 2,000 over the central western interior. We've got a little bit warmer air way up there over the Yukon coming in across Eagle and along the Yukon River there, about 4,000 feet though, not all that great. And pretty cool out here over the Bering Sea, 2,000 feet well south of the Aleutians. And taking a look at icing, southeast flow, higher you go, it's actually southerly flow. And that's going to, best chance of icing here will be some occasional isolated moderate, otherwise light, rime icing here, Kodiak Island, up and across the southwest interior. This zone here, even less of a chance, just a slight chance you could see something in there, possibly. You may not at all. And of course, icing free to the east, no icing out over the Aleutians or the Bering Sea or the southeast coast. And for the jet stream, high pressure here right over the west coast of the United States, ridging northwestward across the panhandle into the eastern interior. And a strong jet across the Pacific really slows down here as it comes up and over the top of that ridge. Low pressure southeast Bering Sea, southerlies about 60 knots, mostly covering the western interior, but still south to north, keeping the moisture in. As I mentioned, over Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, and southwest. And then for 9,000 feet, southeast winds 20 to 30 knots across Kodiak Island, in along Bristol Bay. More southerly, though, across the Kuskokwim Valley at about 25, and then turning southwest 25 to 30, right on up to the Arctic coast. Lighter winds under this pretty good high center there, just about 5 to 10 knots at the most there from the Panhandle into the eastern and central Copper River Basin. A little breezier around this low, but only maybe 30 knots out of the northwest, and 3,000 feet, about the same pattern there. Southeast flow up to 35 here into the southwest interior. Turbulence-wise, not a whole lot. Those winds aren't all that strong. Light to isolated moderate chop, northeast Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and Unalaska Island. After the break, I'll return with the marine forecasts.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and today I'm privileged to introduce Dr. Uccellini, the Director of the United States National Weather Service. Welcome back to Alaska, sir.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Prior to being the leader of the National Weather Service, your work included an extensive look at snowstorms across the northeastern United States. These are the types of storms that can bring some of the country's largest cities to its knees. Tell me a little bit about your fascination with snow.
Well, as far back as I can remember, I've always been interested in weather, growing up as a kid on Long Island, New York, and was particularly fascinated by snowstorms. Why they occurred, the distribution of snow was very varied across the entire region, the rain-snow line, all those things fascinated me right from the get-go. And I was interested in knowing how they worked, how the forecast worked, or more often than not didn't work one way or the other. And that drove me, that interest continued to build and drove me through high school right into college wanting to be a meteorologist.
Okay, that's a fascinating story, and I think every meteorologist has a weather story like that in some way.
Right.
Due to Alaska's size and proximity to the North Pole, sometimes it's difficult to detect and analyze the weather patterns over Alaska. What's the National Weather Service doing to improve that weather detection?
Well, observations in this type of environment is a big challenge, whether it's from space or from what we call in situ observations from the ground or within the systems. Clearly, satellites have been playing an increasing role in providing the big picture, not only from a visual sense and what you see is occurring, but also from providing the data for numerical models that then are used to actually predict the weather. Alaska is actually pretty well positioned with respect to polar orbiting satellites, since you get a faster return of those satellites over your particular area. And in fact, the polar satellite system is the backbone for the observations that we use in our models, especially our global models, and they're particularly important for observing weather features that affect Alaska.
Alaskans live and die by the weather every day, and one of the strategic goals of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service is to develop a more weather-ready nation. What does it mean for Alaskans to be weather-ready?
Well, the strategic outcome is based on people being ready, responsive, and therefore resilient to the increasing threats to extreme weather events. Those threats are related to not only the nature of the events, but the fact that we're becoming more vulnerable to them as we have more people, more infrastructure that could be affected by these events. So we have to ensure that the observations we make for situational awareness, the forecasts we make for people to take the proper responses are connected to people's actions, the response to these events, so that they will be more resilient to what's facing them. You know, there are examples with respect to hurricanes. More people living along the coastline takes longer to evacuate. We have to make better forecasts with longer lead times, but we also have to communicate the threat so people will actually take action to avoid those storms. Up here you have, as in other parts of the United States, an increasing threat related to fire. As there are more people living in fire-prone areas, we have to ensure that our forecasts are good, that we don't have false alarms that make people not react to the forecast when in fact they should. But we also have to be able to communicate the threat and make sure that we're working with the partners in the emergency management community so that communities and right down to individuals will actually take the proper responses in the face of these events. So that's the strategic goal. There are a lot of challenges for us in terms of improving forecasts, but also improving our communication skills and linking with the emergency management communities that are actually out there trying to protect lives and mitigate property loss.
So a huge partnership effort going forward.
That's one of the important keys for the success of meeting the strategic goal.
Okay. Well, one of the things you're talking about was understanding the weather information we're getting back from the computers, weather modeling, and you did a lot of work with that in some of your prior positions with the Environmental Prediction Center there, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. What can you tell us about recent improvements in that weather modeling? And you were using the polar orbiters as kind of a source of information that started that process.
Well, you know, first of all, we have to recognize that everything you see, you read and hear about weather, climate, or ocean forecasts are all driven by numerical models. Now, it really has been the revolution in our forecast process in the last part of the 20th century. The success of that numerical enterprise is based on three factors: big computers, global data, not just local data, but you have to have a global data set, and then the models themselves, the science that's behind the models and in running the models in an operational mode. So we're working to improve all three of those components. We upgraded our computers last year. We're going through another upgrade even as I speak. We'll be upgrading from 200 trillion calculations per second to 700 trillion calculations per second by January of 2015. This increase in the computer will allow us to run what we call Earth system models. It's not just the atmosphere, it's the atmosphere, ocean, ice, which is obviously very important up here, and land models that are all coupled together at higher resolution. So you need the big computers, you need the science that allows us to run these models and run them in a parallel mode, and that they're coupled so that the ocean effects could affect the atmosphere and vice versa, as an example. And then the global observations are absolutely critical, and over the last 20, 30 years they've become more dependent upon the satellite systems, and especially the polar orbiting satellites, which help drive the observations needed for those models, whether they be atmospheric observations, land, ice observations. We're deriving more and more of that from satellites now that feed into these models and produce forecasts with extended lead times. Now out, for extreme events especially, we're seeing much improved forecast out in the 4, 5, 6, 7, and even 8-day range, which gets us back to Weather Ready Nation, because if you're going to get ready for a storm event, you want those consistent forecasts approaching that event from day 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, so you can take the actions several days in advance that can help mitigate the property loss and protect your livelihood.
Okay, all part of the mission of protecting life and property. Dr. Uccellini, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and speaking to Alaskans and sharing how the National Weather Service is working for Alaska and the nation. Wish you safe travels around the 49th. Enjoy your time here, sir. And for Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, not much different from yesterday, except less ice now, still thinning out slowly, melting away, slowly each day here north of St. Lawrence Island, and to even a little bit lesser extent to the north there. But you can see the blue area keeps expanding with each passing day. And for the coastal water forecasts, north 20, central and south coast of the Panhandle, lighter 10 to 15 knot winds up to the north, and Lynn Canal, light winds north at 10 knots. Northwest 15 for Stevens Passage, and north 20 for Clarence Strait with seas 4 feet. Outlook for Monday, southeast winds 15 knots for Clarence Strait, and only at about 10 knots for Stevens Passage, and south 15 for Lynn Canal, and those seas running 2 to 3 feet. And south 20 knots on the south coast there. Otherwise, 15 knots turn southeast at 10 as you head north. Kind of the north coast here, variable at 10 with seas 5 feet. And Prince William Sound, variable to east at 10 with 2-foot seas. Same thing for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Southeast 15, western zone, and small craft advisories. Barren Islands on up into Kamishak Bay, southeast 25 tomorrow, 7-foot seas. East 15, southern Cook Inlet, and north of the Forelands, east at 10. Northeast winds at 10 for the entire stretch of Cook Inlet with 2 to 3-foot seas on Monday. Small craft advisories continue for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay with east-southeast winds at 25. Northeast 15 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast. Up toward Middleton Island only at about 10 knots. Same thing for Prince William Sound. A couple of light wind days coming up. Southeast 25, so small craft advisories east side of Kodiak Island, and also all the way down to Castle Cape, southeast at 25, and then they turn southwest at 25 to Cape Sarachev. Southeast 20 brings the side of the peninsula, and Bristol Bay east 25 with 5-foot seas. Southeast 20 for Monday for Bristol Bay. Westerlies 20 here for the Alaska Peninsula, seas running 5 to 7 feet. Southwest 15 from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and then 25 knots southwest, continue for Kodiak Island, or southwest 25, Kodiak, and south 25 for Shelikof Strait. For the Fox Islands, again, strongest winds will be across Unalaska Island, west-northwest 25 to 30 knots. Tomorrow seas 9 to 10 feet. Unmak Island on out toward Atka, 15 to 20 knots from the west-northwest. And then central Aleutians, though, that zone, northwest, really light winds here. West-northwest 10 with 4-foot seas all the way out to probably the Komodorskis. And for Monday, south 15 here, a little bit of a change, but not much out west. Westerlies at 10, light winds continue for the central Aleutians. and 15 knots out of the northwest become west at 20 for Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast at 15, north side, northeast 15 knots. Small craft advisories for the Pribilofs for northwest winds at 25 and seas around 6 feet, south 15, St. Matthew Island, then north 15 for St. Lawrence Island. And the outlook for Monday, southeast 20 there for the St. Lawrence Island zone, east 10, north of Nunivak Island, east 20 there, south of the island, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs, and small craft advisory, southwest 25 for St. Matthew Island. And up along the Beaufort Sea coast on the east side, pretty light and variable winds, 5 to 10 knots. Then you get to the central coast here, becomes a little more easterly at 15, that goes all the way down to Cape Beaufort, and then north to northwest, south of that area at about 15. And for Monday, swing it around to the east-southeast through here, but only at 10 knots. Kind of a light variable wind pattern up the west coast there. Probably be predominantly southwest, but only at 10 knots, south 5 to 10 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And looking at tonight's map again, clouds, rainfall continue to diminish, but won't end completely here. Be kind of showery, damp, and definitely cloudy for the North Gulf Coast and much of the southern interior as well. Copper River Basin, diminishing winds, but staying dry, maybe some showers up toward the southern slopes of the eastern Alaska Range, especially back to the west here. Mostly dry, Tanana Valley, a few showers going on now though, and better chance up here to the northwest toward that weakening low center, as well as over Bristol Bay in the southeast Bering with that weakening low center. And high pressure building in over the eastern Gulf, ends the showers shortly after midnight for the Panhandle on the north side. And then look for a partly to mostly sunny day tomorrow across the southeast coast. Light winds that'll extend up into the eastern interior. Chance of rain continues southern Kenai Peninsula and into Monday as well for the southern Kenai Peninsula, the Kodiak Islands. Sunny southeast Alaska, mostly sunny. Again, highs anywhere 60s to maybe lower 70s over the eastern Tanana Valley in 40-mile country.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.